Welcome to our Matter Startup Showcase. My name is Stephen Collins. I'm the CEO of Matter. We are a healthcare technology incubator and innovation hub built on a belief that collaboration between entrepreneurs and industry leaders is the best way to develop healthcare solutions. At our startup showcases, we choose a topic and we invite 3 of our member companies to present their solutions to a panel of industry experts. Today's program focuses on improving quality of life and creating opportunities for elderly adults. We have ConnectCareHero, Rubitection and Stedi, 3 companies who will share how their solutions enable independent living, reduce social isolation, and promote value-based care. We have 3 expert panelists and decision makers from industry stakeholders who will ask the startups questions following their pitches. Amy Ostrom is the VP of Skilled Nursing Solution Strategy at MatrixCare, which provides post-acute EHR software to more than 13,000 facility-based care settings and 2,500 home care and hospice organizations. Amy served in various customer-facing and product leadership roles throughout her 23 years with the organization, and today her focus is on new industry opportunities and on monitoring key trends and industry dynamics. Claire Zick is the head of product for consumer health and innovation at CVS Health. Most recently, her team launched CVS Health Symphony, a next generation medical alert system designed to help seniors live independently longer. Claire previously led IoT strategy for Aetna Digital and has launched multiple new products over her career at both startups and Fortune 500 companies. And Matt Knight is an innovation specialist at the Hines VA Hospital in Chicago, where he's responsible for implementing facility-based innovation programs and works closely with frontline employees to improve veterans care, the employee experience, and the VA facilities overall. Matt has experience working as an outpatient dietitian at the VA and previously worked in corporate finance as a CPA. So each of our member companies will have 7 minutes to pitch, followed by 7 minutes of Q&A with the panelists. I will moderate and do my best to ensure that we stay on time. So let's kick things off with ConnectCareHero, and it is my pleasure to introduce the founder and CEO, Osvaldo Montelongo. Osvaldo, the stage is yours.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Osvaldo, I'm the founder of ConnectCareHero, and we're on a mission to tackle social isolation and loneliness at scale. We're creating the masterclass for older adults 65 plus to help organizations tackle social isolation by providing culturally relevant activity programming to communities. Because social isolation and loneliness is a huge public health crisis. As of 2020, over 56% of older adults reported feeling lonely, and this has direct financial and health implications. We spend over $14 billion in negative effects of social isolation. Not only that, if you're socially isolated, you have 50% chance of higher likelihood of developing dementia and 30% higher likelihood of early mortality. One of the things that is astonishing is just the lack of screening for social isolation. Less than 25% of hospitals actually screen for social isolation among this population. And that's why we created ConnectCareHero. Our social engagement platform provides virtual engaging content, smart screenings, and analytics that combat social isolation and help improve outcomes. That's why our entertainment and tracking platform not only helps organizations create engaging communities in minutes, but through our on-suite of products, we help organizations capture key data, analyze interest and demographics, and identify older adults for rising risk using our very own virtual proprietary rooms. And why is this valuable? Because we can help, for example, CCRCs help drive length of stay by residents by being more proactive on their at-risk population. And if you're at home care and health plans, we can help you attract and retain more members by offering unique personalized programming. To date, we've helped organizations track over 380,000 activities through our platform and primarily servicing senior living communities, but we're excited to expand and work with other spaces such as hospital systems and home care groups. What makes us unique is our vendor network. We have one of the largest content specifically provided for older adults. Right now, we have over 200 vendors on our platform that provide unique categories such as mariachi sessions, cooking shows that are Afro-Latin inspired, and many others. We offer 9 different languages, including sign language, and we have available short and long classes, and our content is always seasonal as well. Meet some of our vendors on our platform. We pride ourselves on having top talent on our platform, not only with great personalities, but quality content as well. They have been specifically curated through our platform because they know how to engage older adults, specifically in a virtual setting. What makes us unique too is how easy it is to access our programming. Our programming can be accessed to any device with unique links provided to the older adults or to community, so they can access the live content. Here's a quick little clip of one of our actual chefs on our platform. What organizations love about us is that our ability to help them capture data-driven insights on the various engagement metrics. This means that we can capture data that's suggestive to rising risk for social isolation. We help with unique screening questions before they actually start events through our virtual rooms we have. Our business model is simple. We're a B2B SaaS platform where we charge based off number of older adults per community. And as far as partnerships, we just completed tax certification longevity program where it was partnered up with the Melinda Gates Group on the longevity space, and we are focused solely on social engagement solutions. We've also been featured in several articles this past year on how we're shaking up the engagement space. As far as our team, we have over 75 years of combined experience in the space, and it makes us well equipped to strategically grow in this space in the years to come. What we're looking for in a partner is we're looking to help scale their social wellness initiatives. So if anyone's interested in providing, getting to know their interests and demographics of their populations, we can easily do that by helping capture the data. And if they're interested in also launching culturally relevant programming based off of interests and insights, we can definitely do that as well. So thank you so much. I'm Osvaldo, the founder of ConnectCareHero, and we're helping tackle social isolation and loneliness at scale. Thank you, guys.
Osvaldo, thank you so much for sharing. I would invite Amy and Matt and Claire to join us, and I'll turn it over to them as our experts to ask you some questions.
I'll go first. Thanks, Osvaldo. That was a great presentation. So obviously being in technology, the data and the analytics that you mentioned really caught my eye. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what you're measuring with the analytics and the data that you're capturing, and a little bit about what type of roles or what personas are utilizing that data to then kind of measure quality and trends.
Yeah, it's a good question. So yeah, in terms of metrics we're capturing, so we not only capture, obviously, if someone attended certain events within our virtual programming, but we also help them organizations capture the levels of engagement as well, right? So whether they were passively engaged, highly engaged, and captured through our virtual rooms. We also capture length of attendance, so drop-offs, within those metrics. And we have a few other metrics we also capture. One of them being unique not invasive questions that to help with screenings as well. So for example, before you get into a session, we ask, hey, how did you sleep last night? And then we capture that data, and then they can enjoy their show. So we do this all through our virtual rooms we have.
Great, thanks.
Hi, Osvaldo. This is Claire from CVS Health. I had a couple questions. One, I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about the activities. Are they intended to be interactive, or are they more demonstration? In other words, are the seniors actually able to follow along and do the activities or participate themselves, or are they more watching it as entertainment?
Yeah, so this is our all live programming intended to be live engagement interaction with our vendors, entertainers. And so it's not pre-recorded. They can actually ask questions, and all our talent, all our people on our platform are trained on that, so they know when to stop, when to ask questions, and ask audience. So it gets multiple it gets engagement across, in the communities, for example, or in the home as well.
Got it. And then I'm wondering if you have done any research or any data around the engagement or results in diminishing social isolation with a virtual program versus some of the in-person interactive programs that like a CCRC might be providing in their assisted living facilities. And if you have any data or comparison to those kind of two different mediums.
Yeah, so we have over 380,000 activities tracked through our platform so far. We do have virtual and in-person data as well that's within that. So one of the things that we've seen, especially now during the pandemic, is that there is a lot of attendance to our virtual sessions because it's one of the things now they don't have as many vendors or entertainment coming through their communities. So it's been well received. We get weekly feedback from our community partners we have about how all the residents are really looking forward to all the sessions because they are live, they are interactive, and they get to experience different things that they normally wouldn't. For example, mariachi sessions, aerial shows, you name it.
Great. I have one more question and I'll cede the floor for Matt so he has time. You mentioned that you're a B2B business model. Can you share a little bit more about that construct? Are you, is it like per activity engaged, per utilizing user, or per facility fee?
Right now it's per community fee based off the number of their adults they have. As we move going forward, we will look to do per member per month, or some type of per resident per community engagement fee. But yes, right now it's based on community.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Hi, Osvaldo. There's a couple of questions that came in that actually I had a similar question too. So I'm going to read this question. So this asks about addressing older, lonely adults that are less likely to participate in activities. And then how does your app actually help connect lonely people? I know it provides the programming, but how do you connect with those lonely people with your application?
Yeah, so regarding the loneliness, I use my dad as a great example. And he's actually the reason why we started ConnectCareHero. He was a 40-year Mexican farmer, spoke Spanish. But in his community, in the nursing home, skilled nursing facility, he didn't have people to engage with because it wasn't being offered. And so we help people like my dad, a small percentage, but they're still probably the most rising, the risk population for them, with, hey, Mr. Montalongo, here's some program we think you really like, with other people that actually have a similar interest in your culture and your language. So that's how we help through our software, because in most cases, if someone's going to be super socially active out and about, they're going to have a lot to do. But then the people that don't have that don't have many options, we are the perfect tool for them, for solutions, so the community can engage them.
Yeah, I'm thinking of my father-in-law as you're saying this, so that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions from the panel?
Yeah, I did have one.
I see there's one here. Okay.
Oh, yeah, I did have one other question. You mentioned that for the benefit for the CCRCs is that you're hopefully driving or extending length of stay. And you talked a little bit also about like direct in-home care. Can you elaborate on that kind of direct to consumer or in-home care component a little bit?
Yeah, so what we've seen through our current customers is that, they are CCRC, for example, and they're trying to reach the older adult before they get to the community. So they have programs that are specifically designed to kind of not fully be in their community, but just enough to kind of get them introduced to their social space. So we kind of provide those unique links and invites for them so they can have, access to the virtual social community for sunrise senior living as an example, right? So it's like this, virtual, so we can get to know the locations. That's kind of how we help them at the home. Was that answering your question, or can you repeat it again? Sorry if I missed it.
Yeah, I was interested in how what were you were doing in the home, in the direct to home space. So yes, that's helpful. Thank you. So it sounds like all your interactions in a direct to home space are through a CCRC partnership. Is that accurate?
Or home care as well.
Okay.
Home care organizations as well. Yep.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
And I see the offer other languages. We offer 9 different languages. So we offer English, Spanish, We do Mandarin, Polish, Russian, sign language as well.
Great. Well, Matt or Amy, any last questions for you before we move on to the next one?
Nope, I'm great. Thanks.
Nope,
All right.
thank you, Stephen.
Osvaldo, thanks so much. And with that, let's bring up our next presenter. Our next company is Rubitection. And we have Sana Gaspald, who is the founder and CEO, who will present the company.
So thank you everybody for your time today. Rubitection is developing a tool for early skin health monitoring and care management. I'm Dr. Sana Gaspard. I'm the CEO of Rubitection and the primary inventor of its technology. I have a doctorate in biomedical engineering with a specialization in medical device development. As I mentioned before, Rubitection is a medtech company addressing a global healthcare problem known as bed sores by providing caregivers with a low-cost early detection tool. My vision is to make our solution the global standard tool around the world to address the aging population, to improve access to care in the home and through the continuum of care, as well as to save the lives of vulnerable patients as they age. For example, like Superman, or in this case, wealthy actor Christopher Reeves. He was paralyzed from his neck down, survived for 9 years, until he developed a bed sore, which would lead to his death. Early detection could have saved his life. And he's not alone, because bed sores kill twice as many people as car accidents every year, affecting 2.3 million people, killing 60,000 of them needlessly. This is because if you can detect this condition early, you can prevent it from developing, but early detection is difficult. The early diagnostic test is a manual and visual test. It's limited by the skill level of the user or the skin color of the patient, making people of color over 2 times higher risk at having the most severe cases of the condition, while costing the US healthcare system $11 billion in 1 year alone. And it's now a cost that facilities now have to pay out of pocket. And it's not cheap. One bed sore can cost on average $43,000, and one patient can have more than one. In addition to the direct treatment cost, facilities are also penalized up to 3% of their total annual Medicare revenue, which can lead to millions of lost revenue every year. With the primary at-risk population being the elderly, reaching 80 million by the year 2040, this is soon going to be an avalanche of cost and a huge healthcare problem for families. Even wound care experts agree that an early detection tool is needed. We are addressing that need with the Rubitect assessment system. It's a patented optical device that allows any user to detect the early signs of that skin inflammation that's going to lead to the development of the wound. When used in clinical practice, the device is placed onto the skin to make a measurement where it shines light into the skin and measures the light that comes back. We then analyze that signal to provide data on risk analytics, care management, as well as telehealth when used in a home care setting, allowing any caregiver, whether they are a consumer like you or myself at home, monitoring our loved one, to a healthcare professional like a nurse in the hospital, to allow them to have the data they need to save lives, save time, and save money, while allowing healthcare facilities to increase their Medicare revenue by shifting costs away from high-cost treatment to low-cost life-saving interventions. So in terms of where we are to date, we've already built an initial proof of concept prototype and tested it clinically on patients to show that we can detect that early biomarker of the developing wound with a 96% accuracy. And the data that you're looking at right now is actually patient data, and it's on white skin. We've also been able to make the same measurements on Asian skin as well as on Black skin. Compared to the competition, which ranges from ultrasound devices to temperature monitoring and position monitoring, our solution is more reliable. We are easier to use both by a consumer or a healthcare professional. We're diagnostic and we're lower in cost. This will allow us to dominate a $4.3 billion US market, which includes sales to hospitals, nursing homes, and home care, where we can support the continuum of care as someone ages from their home to a nursing home or to a hospital potentially. Our business model includes a razor blade model where we bundle the software and the probe and make additional revenue from the disposable cover. In this model, here's an example in this business how we generate revenue. Essentially, for every device we sell at 120, we make approximately $22,000 in annual recurring revenue. We anticipate that one hospital may need 12 devices for the admissions, the geriatric department, and their ICUs, which gives us around $265,000 per year per facility. With over 6,000 hospitals in the US, that gives us a total market opportunity of $1.6 billion. And $265,000 a year for facilities is roughly just around 20% of what they might be spending currently on direct treatment costs, as well as penalties. As a result, healthcare facilities have already began contacting us to either purchase the technology or clinically collaborate. We're looking to work with 3 facilities this year to do some testing. To scale to the broader market, we will work with strategic sales and distribution partners, all of whom here we've actually engaged in, and they've provided letters of interest. And that's because they have solutions for treatment, but nothing really for early detection. And so we're meeting that void. Even larger companies, not traditionally in that space like Procter & Gamble, recently evaluated us as well to be their next billion-dollar brand, with the focus of bringing the solution to consumers in their home to support longevity and safe aging. To get to market, we're currently focused on prototype development and pilot testing before moving on to product development and initial sales with the goal of launching in 2023. Rubitection's team is dedicated and has domain expertise. As I mentioned, I'm the CEO and inventor of the technology. Dr. Hines has a degree in chemical engineering, develops our diagnostic algorithms, and Michael Schilling supports prototype design and fabrication. We've surrounded ourselves with experts in the field, most notably Dr. Joyce Black, who's the current vice president of the National Pressure Ulcer Advisory Panel that sets the national and international guidelines. As a team, we're dedicated to solving this problem. And for us, really, the best are just the beginning, because with the broader application of our same technology to other conditions that affect the aging, like diabetic foot ulcers, surgical wound monitoring, or chronic dermatological conditions, we can increase the amount of people we can help while growing our accessible market. And so with that, we invite you to join our revolution, to reimagine skincare based on data-driven analytics. We're currently raising a seed funding round and looking for investors as well as potential partners for clinical testing and team members to grow our company. So we hope you can join us in doing well while doing good, and you can always learn more by going to rubitection.com.
Thank you so much, Sana, for your presentation. I invite Amy and Matt and Claire to now focus on questions.
All right, thanks, Anna. I can go. So my first question, you talked about this tool being easier to use and more reliable than some of your competitors. Can you go into a little bit more detail about how it's more reliable than others that are on the market?
Sure. So the other technologies on the market include ultrasound, which is accurate, but it's very expensive. You have to pay for the equipment and a technician to read it. So it's not widely used, and it's also not something you can easily take into the home. Other solutions include temperature monitoring, where temperature monitoring on its own, standalone, is not typically a diagnostic means for assessing the early development of the wound. Other solutions include position monitoring or pressure monitoring. So those are not actually specifically diagnostic, because they just monitor your position or how much pressure is underneath your body, but you still need someone to come over and actually do the skin assessment. And the other main competitor would be a solution that measures electric impedance in your skin. So it monitors electricity, but the unfortunate thing about that is not very accurate, because it can be affected, for example, by sweat on your skin, the humidity in the air. And so you have to take several measurements at that site to get one specific measurement. And so we're providing, in comparison, we're providing an optical approach that's used widely in the medical space right now. So for example, if you went into the hospital to monitor your heart rate and oxygenation level, they would use a pulse oximeter. So that uses optics in the same optical principle that we are applying in our solution, which is has proven that it's accurate and proven itself as a monitoring and potential diagnostic tool.
That's great. And then I had one more question. Can you speak a little bit to how long it takes to use the device on an individual?
Yeah, so we have designed it or designing it to make it comparable to the manual test. So the manual test takes about 2 to 3 seconds to do the assessment, and we're designing it for around the same time frame.
That's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Sana.
Okay.
Go ahead, Matt. That's all right.
Thanks, Claire.
This time.
Okay. Hi, Sana. Thank you. So my question was related to the app that you have for the data. Can you talk a little bit more about the app, and is that the only way to get the results from this, or how else could we interface? I'm just thinking at the VA, right? We're very technology averse here. So,
yes. So in terms of the app, the device can work with the app or standalone. So in terms of the app specifically, we can support risk analytics. So where we can show the data in terms of how risk is changing over time. 1 second. I'm trying to bring up the slide so I can show you. There we go. We can do risk analytics, so you can see how risk is changing over time and get product solutions. But then at the same time, and then it also allows you to send that data to the EHR. But if you just need it at the bedside, we could give you the diagnosis at the bedside. And then you can either log into the web app to look at the analytics.
wow. Okay. Okay. And then it looks like here too on the screen, it gives you suggested treatment protocols based on the risk assessment.
Yes. Yeah. So these are current treatment options that are in place. What we're offering though is an opportunity to detect the condition earlier, so that right now they can only do yes or no in terms of the diagnosis. And so now we're providing low, medium, or high risk specific to that site. So if you were, let's say, caring for someone at home or in a hospital or even a nursing home, you could potentially track changes in the skin as the wound is progressing and proactively put them on solutions that would prevent the development of the wound, instead of waiting until they have an open wound and then providing the preventative treatment at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll cede the floor to Claire, and then if there's time, I have one more question.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on a couple of questions that Matt had asked around kind of the use and the intervention. The first question I had is, how often would you need to do use the device to do the diagnostic in order to do early intervention? Can you share a little bit about the time cycle for that?
Yes. So for the time cycle right now, we're telling facilities, if we're talking to facilities, to do it on the time cycle they have, because it's already a procedure they're already doing. So if you're admitted to the hospital or nursing home, they're checking you automatically, because it's a high legal liability that they can get sued for. They also have to report it to Medicare. While you're in the facility, if you're high risk, they're monitoring your skin often. So if you're in the hospital, they will do it twice a day. If you're in the ICU, if you're in a nursing home, they'll do it every other day. And home care is usually reliant on the family to do that assessment. And we would recommend they do it at least once a day, ideally twice a day, once in the morning time, once in the afternoon, or before bed, let's say.
Got it. And so you mentioned that one of the benefits of this device is that it could be used, say, by a home healthcare worker or a family member. If they were to get feedback that there is a potential issue, how would they go about doing an intervention? Like, what's the intervention flow for an individual who might be using this in the home versus in a nursing home or hospital setting?
Yeah, so the intervention is the same, regardless of who was doing the assessment or who does the detection. So if it's really early and it's just pressure, generally to stop the condition from developing, you just need to increase blood flow to that site, which means moving the patient more often. So what we're hoping we can do, if you can catch it early, you can either put a bandage on the skin so you don't have breakdown of the top layer of the skin if it's due to moisture. And as you progress in risk, you would have to change the support surface the patient is sitting on or the person is sitting on, so that they don't have constant pressure at the site where the wound is developing. And so there's either pressure relieving surfaces like this purple cushion, which moves the pressure around away from the pressure sites. And let's say if they were more at a higher risk, you would want something that takes pressure off completely, which would be a pressure alternating device. So the treatment is the same. What we would ask the caregiver who's a family member at home to do would be to telehealth with their physician, who would then give the prescription for this special cushion, because those things usually you can buy them yourself, but it's, if you can get your insurance to cover it, it's probably better to get the prescription and have your insurance pay for that.
Great. And then my last question, because I'm not familiar about FDA guidelines around like skin sensitive. Will you need to go through any FDA approval, or how are you looking at classifying this type of device?
Yeah, so we'll have to go through FDA approval. All medical devices have to go through that process. We've done an initial regulatory strategy, and there is a code for, let's say, bed sore, pressure ulcer monitoring and care management tools. And so the classification for that is class 1. We think will be a class 1 510K, where we can use one of our competitors as a predicate. And so in that case, in terms of getting to market, if we had all the money we needed today, we could get to market without specifically waiting for FDA approval, because we're a low risk. We would just have to be FDA compliant as opposed to getting the full, waiting for approval, since we're a low risk category.
Great, thank you.
No problem, thank you, Claire.
Matt, you said you had one more question?
Yeah, I was just thinking, in terms of, you mentioned partnering with hospitals. Are you in the stage of development where the prototypes are complete and you're looking for clinician feedback and data, or are you still looking for input on the prototype? Like, what stage in the process are you currently at?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so we're looking to partner with hospitals, nursing homes, home care agencies. We do have a functional prototype. This is, I don't know if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have one that we've done testing with. We're working on our next prototype. So I would say we are looking for both. So we have prototypes that we're trying to do clinical testing with to get actual data and clinical feedback. But because we want to ensure that we have product market fit, we're always looking for feedback on design as we go into product development, just to make sure that the initial product that we launch, our users and customers will love it. So we're looking for both. And so if you know anybody who's on the clinical side that is a wound care specialist or a podiatrist who does diabetic foot ulcers, we would love to talk to them.
Great, thank you.
Well, Sana, thank you so much for your presentation. Really appreciate it. And thanks to our panelists. And we will move on to the third presentation now. So we will hear from Stedi, and Matt Kumela, the founder and CEO, is up next.
Okay, thank you. Great to be here, and awesome presentations from ConnectCareHero and Rubitection there. So my name is Matt Kumela. I'm a physical therapist. I'm also the CEO and founder of Stedi, where we're really reimagining the way people are capable of moving through serious injury or chronic need. We're doing that by designing a new generation of mobility devices that address the core challenges that users, families, and medical professionals face every day with this type of equipment. One of our flagship product concepts, shown here, has won 2 international design awards in the categories of aging and mobility. So my background, I have a doctorate in physical therapy. I'm board certified in geriatrics. I've really spent the past 10 years working with medically complex and geriatric populations, getting to know firsthand a lot of the aging and longevity considerations we're talking about today. And then as that relates to the mobility device equipment we use to support these populations. At a certain point, I got in the garage and started building mock-ups, and that's really where Stedi's products that we're going to show you and the intellectual property tied to them were born. We have our elderly populations right now is the fastest growing age segments. Also a significant increasing in prevalence of multiple chronic conditions, multiple morbidity. These populations also are responsible for the biggest chunk of healthcare spending right now. And they also represent a population that's very vulnerable to greater physical needs or needing assistance in their mobility. We've seen these trends as well over the past 15 to 20 years. Significant increase in mobility device use. Falls rate increase is skyrocketing, and caregiver burdens. What hasn't changed over this same time period is the equipment that we typically use to support these populations. The front-wheeled walker, for example, hasn't changed since it was invented in 1953. Physicians, physical therapists, they're the experts in this space. They're power users. They recommend, prescribe, and influence purchase of this equipment. And they overwhelmingly believe that more appropriate walker type options are not only necessary, but really long overdue. So limitations in mobility can typically manifest themselves in one, if not all, of four buckets. Independence, falls risk, caregiver burden, and equipment needs. This can have huge consequences for the patient and then for their family network as well, but a negative domino effect, typically for the healthcare provider and system at large, whether it's costs, whether it's care outcomes or level of need. When it comes to the aging and multiple morbidity populations especially, this is where these problems and consequences can really spin out of control very quickly and expose care gaps. So there's a huge opportunity to innovate in a dated mobility device space. Stedi's taking a scientific approach that we are confident can have massive impacts and benefits on the patient, and then a domino effect on all stakeholders really involved as it relates to those buckets of mobility that I was talking about. So independence, falls risk, caregiver burden, and equipment needs. The mobility device space is strong and growing. We've identified a clear white space as it relates focusing on mobility optimization while remaining accessibly and competitively priced. So two key propositions that Stedi devices have that are particularly important, I think, for aging and longevity considerations, whether it's maximizing level of independence for the individual or minimizing, on the other side of that, minimizing caregiver burden and falls risk. All of our devices are multimodal, so they support a user from sitting to standing to walking and back again, meaning they can potentially replace multiple pieces of equipment. And then our device stabilizing technology, hidden within the frame, the reaction stabilizer, we're calling it, helps keep the user and the device steady during all instances and use cases. If any of you have ever used a walker or have a family member who is or has, you're probably all too familiar with how incredibly unstable they can be, how unfortunately ironic that is, given they're a staple piece of medical equipment meant to stabilize and support someone who's struggling to move. Our devices to early testing are 25 times more stable than the status quo traditional front-wheeled walker. StediGo is our other product in development, similar use cases to StediStep, but for someone who's further along in the rehab process, more independent, more of a community ambulator. It has an intuitive braking system that's safe and easy to use. This includes an automatic seat locking. The seat is really importantly up and out of the way when you don't need it, when the user doesn't need it. And then when they want to take a break, put the seat down, it automatically locks the brakes in a way that's unique. That seat being up and out of the way allows for a minimal reach and a zero turning radius. It allows our devices to be minimally invasive to the user's environment and circumstances, so they can have access to the world around them. So for activities of daily living, like walking up to a sink to wash their hands, it's really out of their way. This is not something our competitors are focusing on, and something that early retailers and users that we've spoken with are really excited about. One of our prototype testers is a great example of how Stedi products can immediately help benefit all four buckets of those buckets of mobility by simply swapping out his traditional front-wheeled walker with our StediStep prototype. This individual, who's currently recovering from a spinal cord injury he suffered 6 months ago, had immediate metric improvements in his functional status, implications for independence, longevity, as well as falls risk. He also would be a decreased burden to his currently full-time caregiver, who he relies on for physical assistance. Had he known about Stedi products prior, it may have mitigated the $60,000 in home modifications and supplemental pieces of equipment that he's purchased. We are currently raising a seed note round to take us through production and first year of sales in 2022. That's all I have. Thanks so much. Great to be here.
I appreciate it. And I will turn it back over to Amy, Matt, and Claire.
Thanks, Matt. I'll jump in and go first. Great presentation. And I love ideas where you look at something that's been in existence for 70 years and think, why can't we do this better? I watched the video on your website and really enjoyed especially the sitting to standing piece of this that no one has thought of before. I thought that was great. My question, I guess, as relates to this, and a couple of questions. What's it made out of? And then how heavy is it? Does it fold up? How could someone who's kind of going to their car get it in their trunk easily? Is it full? Is it collapsible, portable, et cetera?
Great question. So it's going to be made out of aluminum and glass-filled nylon 3D printed parts, a combination. It will be a similar weight to the very basic walker, a little bit lighter weight than some of the other types, about 10 to 12 pounds, and then 15 pounds for Stedi Go, which is sort of right in the middle. So very lightweight, and then it'll collapse very compactly, similar to the way the traditional walker does.
Okay. Yeah, the Stedi Go, I work at a large hospital, and the Stedi Go specifically, those with the seats, I see people all over the place sitting down on those. That's a great addition.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
Matt, this is Claire. And can you talk a little bit about how you're hoping to go to market and your plans for sales channels?
So we're focusing on D2C, and we started establishing distributor relationships. We see this as something that can span all market segments, including into hospitals, but that's a bit of a brick wall early on. We're not willing to try to knock down. So creating market demand and branding ourselves, we want to take that disruptive approach and show what mobility devices can really be for people. So focusing on e-commerce, D2C, and distribution.
Thank you.
Hi, Matt. I have to say I was really impressed with not seeing the tennis balls anymore on the bottom of your walker like we see today. I wanted to know just a little bit more when you talk about making your product 25 times more stable. Can you give us a little bit more detail on that and how you measured that?
Sure. So we put it through a controlled mechanical test that we put both the traditional, the 4-post and tennis balls walker through. And if you imagine the type of force that would make something tip over, that's a force that we kept consistent. And so the traditional walker is 7 to 8 pounds. And then essentially we found that it takes 5 pounds or a little bit less to knock it over all the way to the ground. So if you were to push it down with 5 pounds, that's what it takes. And then our prototype, which was 12 pounds, 125 pounds of the same type of force it took. And really it was a recreation. We wanted to see the type of force that you would place on it if you're sitting in a chair in front of it and trying to struggle to get out of that chair, or if you're standing and using it and losing your balance, the force you might place on it. Those are the types of forces that we tried to replicate.
Great. And then in working or talking to therapists, I'm sure that they've got a big buy-in to this too. Was there any feedback specifically from rehab folks or the physical therapists that are out there in comparison to the walkers of the 1950s?
There's been a huge positive response so far to not just my network, which I've obviously reached out to, but outside of my network sort of coming to us, very interested in sampling it. It's a little bit of a not so funny inside joke how ancient this equipment is that we have to leverage, especially in hospitals and this and that. I mean, the average therapist knows all too well, especially if you work in a hospital setting, discharging someone. I mean, I'm in charge of discharging someone to be successful in their home. just because I recommend a walker doesn't mean it's the most appropriate option. A lot of times I'm also recommending a walker and caregiver support and home modifications that I know could be mitigated if I could give them a better primary mobility device. And so that's been a lot of the response that I've heard so far.
That's great. Thanks.
Sure.
Thank you, Matt, so much. And thanks as well to Sana and Osvaldo for your presentations, sharing with us your stories and your companies. Thank you, Amy and Claire and Matt, for asking the questions and providing your insights. And thanks to everyone for joining us and spending part of your day with us. And I wish you all a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.